KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. The Keto Diet, the Caveman Diet, the South Beach Diet. If you've tried a slew of dieting routines with minimal success, a new study says you might have better luck fasting a few days per week. University of Colorado researchers recently found that participants who fasted 3 days each week were more successful at losing weight than participants who followed a reduced-calorie diet every day. The fasting group saw 60% more weight loss than the calorie restriction group. Victoria Catanacci led the study and is an associate professor of endocrinology at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. She joined me to talk about why the 3 days per week fasting model was helpful for many participants and why it was an easier plan to stick with.
I see patients in clinic who struggle with weight management, and I've been doing that for probably almost 20 years now. And one of the most common things people tell me is how hard it is to do something every single day. And so I was really interested in finding a way for people to maybe diet part-time and not have to always be thinking about dieting, always be thinking about restricting intake, counting calories, and making sure that they were staying within their calorie goal.
Well, intermittent fasting gets a lot of attention nowadays. It often focuses on eating during a certain window of time during the day. Say you can eat between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. The version of fasting you studied is simply about limiting calorie intake on some days, but not others, but there's no set window of time for eating. What made you want to examine this 3 days per week version of fasting?
Yeah, even what we call time-restricted eating, where people limit their eating to a specific window every day, is something that you really have to do every day. And studies have shown that that time-restricted eating strategy, where you eat within typically an 8 to 10 hour window and you fast for 16 to 18 hours overnight, that strategy produces about the same weight loss as restricting calories every day. We were interested in, trying to find something that might be a little bit better than restricting calories every day, and then also finding a strategy that, again, people didn't have to do every day, didn't have to think about every day.
It sounds like there's some benefit in having at least a couple of days where you feel like you can eat more of what you want so you can feel full.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're losing weight, your body sort of sends hunger signals to your brain. It thinks it's starving. If you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, when we were cave people and we didn't have access to food, we had to have a very high motivation to go out and find more food. And I think that's kind of what happens when we diet every day. Your brain and your gut hormones think that you're starving and send really strong signals to try to get you to eat more food. It's really nice to have those intermittent days, and I think that gives your body a little bit of the recovery in a sense.
One interesting aspect of the study to me is that ultimately this wasn't about the weight loss effect of part-time fasting versus total calorie restriction on our bodies. Rather, it was a behavior study into what kind of diets people can stick with. Why is fasting 3 days per week easier than eating less every day?
I think that for some people, there's no way to have a do-over when you're restricting every day. If you miss your calorie goal, that can be really discouraging. And so I think it can cause people to kind of give up and fall off their diets.
Sure.
We know that most people will fall off their diets after about 1 to 4 months. And with that, the vast majority of people will regain the weight that they've lost. With intermittent fasting, you kind of have a little bit more flexibility. You can pick the days of the week that work for you to fast. So it allows a little bit more flexibility, allows a little bit more sort of self-compassion in terms of the ability to kind of have a do-over if things don't go quite right.
You had 165 people who participated in the study. They were considered obese or nearly obese. You kind of had everyone observe the same healthy eating habits. How did you get everyone to do that?
Well, we don't get anyone to do anything. In weight loss studies and in weight loss in general, we just try to provide as much information and support as we can. Our registered dietitian who led this study has struggled with her weight and is maintaining a 50-pound weight loss. So she has a lot of compassion. She also has a lot of training in behavior change strategies, providing resources about how to shop for healthy foods, helping people through reading nutrition labels, helping them identify the macronutrient contents of the food, how much fat, how much protein, how much carbohydrates.
Right.
We do tend to generally focus on high fiber, lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grain diets, low saturated fat.
And just so I understand, on the days that I am not fasting, can I eat anything I want? Can it be an all Cheetos day?
No, we really encourage people not to view their non-fast days as feast days. On the fast days, people were guided to eat about 20% of their weight maintenance energy requirements. And so for most women in the study, that ended up being somewhere between 400 and 600 calories. For men, it typically ended up between 500 and 700. It's a pretty significant restriction on those 3 fast days a week. But we really wanted people not to overeat on their fed days because it would be really easy to undo all that hard work on a fast day by sort of overindulging.
Okay, got it. So, Vicki, how might people listening who want to lose weight think about integrating this kind of diet into their own lives?
In our study, the way we had people start out was by just doing 1 day a week, see how that went, then add a second day, and then add a third day. And I think that's kind of a good way to warm up to the idea of fasting and figure out which days this strategy works for you. How do you kind of incorporate this into your life? How do you figure out how much 500 calories is? And I think our participants liked that slower ramp up over 3 weeks rather than starting everything all at once.
Right. Well, Vicki, what do you think the study says about the importance of finding a diet that is sustainable for an individual?
We had some really interesting data in our study. We found that the intermittent fasting group ate significantly less than the daily caloric restriction group. So at the end of the day, it seemed that that diet was easier to adhere to over time. I think an important message is really that the best diet for any given person and the one that's going to be the most effective for them is a diet that they feel like they can stick to. And I think with weight loss, it really is trial and error in terms of finding what it is that's going to work for you. And so I don't think that this intermittent fasting is the answer for everyone. It is, I think, an additional option for people that feel like this is something that might work for them.
Victoria Catanacci of the CU School of Medicine studied the effectiveness of a diet that calls for reducing calories 3 days per week. She noted that if you have a health condition, it's important to check with your doctor before adopting a diet like this. We'll have more on her study in our show notes and at KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.